most anticipated college game in a long, long time.
Go, Joe, go!
Tua Tagovailoa.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Devontae Smith.
Justin Jefferson.
Jerry Jeudy.
Very rarely do you see a college football team where every starter on offense or defense makes it to the league. These teams are anomalies. Even greater so when both teams on a given Saturday are at that caliber. Though, of all the times we have seen two teams like this play each other, the most recent occurrence might just be the most stacked. In 2019, number 2 LSU and number 3 Alabama met in what many called the game of the century. 55 future NFL players were on the field that day in Tuscaloosa. Many of those players being college football legends, some likely to be NFL Hall of Famers someday. 30 of those 55 were on the LSU Tigers title-winning team from that year, and 25 played on the Alabama Crimson Tide roster. And since it's been almost 4 years since that incredible matchup, which is longer than the average NFL career, I was curious to see whether Alabama or LSU's NFL players have fared better in the league. So today, we're going to dive deep into the careers of these players and find out who truly defied the meaning of not for long. "55 people is a lot. But since not everyone has established themselves as full-time starters in the NFL, most of this video will focus on the stories of the people who could have careers well beyond that 3-year mark. Though, when we compare Alabama and LSU as teams, every player will be considered. So, to help us understand which team's players have made the most waves in the league, we're going to break down the stories and stats from each position group. But before we get into it though, leave us your prediction in the comment section below on which team you think has better NFL talent. Starting with the defensive line, we can see that there were 7 defensive linemen drafted from the 2019 game, weighing an average of 310 pounds. Of Alabama's 3 players, 2 have become full-time starters. First, Raekwon Davis, a 4-star recruit out of Meridian, Mississippi, who was on Alabama's 2017 national championship team. He joined the Miami Dolphins after the 2019 season as a second-round pick and has become a solid part of the Dolphins' interior defensive line rotation. Next, Christian Barmore of Alabama was the first defensive tackle drafted in the 2021 draft, when he was selected 38th overall by the Patriots. He's shown a lot of potential, but he just needs more reps. In 2021, he was named to the All-Rookie team, but in 2022, he missed 2 months with injury. Many Patriots fans think he's a strong development piece for the future who could eventually dominate like he did with Alabama. Finally, of the 4 LSU players drafted, Rashard Lawrence has gotten the most reps as a starter. He was the only 5-star defensive lineman between Alabama and LSU and has flashed that talent since entering the NFL. But unfortunately, injuries in all 3 of his years in the league have limited his opportunities, and he is now fighting for a roster spot on the Dolphins practice squad. Overall for the defensive line, Alabama has the edge over LSU, as their players have totaled 33 more starts, 124 more tackles, and 5.5 more sacks. Now, as great as those 7 defensive linemen were, the linebackers might just be even better. Similarly, 7 linebackers in total were drafted between both teams. And you might recognize names such as Christian Harris, who was talented enough to start as a true freshman for Alabama in 2019 and was drafted by the Texans. Also, Jamar Chase, who was an All-SEC linebacker in 2019 and was eventually drafted in the 1st round by the Jacksonville Jaguars. But the man who has truly emerged as a leader of the pack is Patrick Queen from LSU, who after taking over for suspended Devin White in 2018 versus Alabama, Queen became a key leader on the LSU defense. In 2019, Queen made huge plays, making a key interception against Tua in the game against Alabama, and then went off in the national championship game versus Clemson, becoming the game's defensive MVP, which impressed the Baltimore Ravens, who selected Queen in the 1st round of the NFL draft. Since then, Queen has had a really solid NFL career, racking up 321 tackles and 10 sacks over 50 games, including a strip sack in his rookie season versus Joe Burrow. Alabama makes a claim to be linebacker university, but with the help of Patrick Queen, it looks like LSU had a better linebacking group that year. But similarly to how Alabama calls themselves linebacker university, LSU calls themselves defensive back university.
Arizona Cardinals select Patrick Peterson,
Tyrann Mathieu, Jamal Adams, Eric Reed, Tre'Davious White.
And 2019 continues that tradition too, with 6 total DBs drafted from LSU. Notably, Derek Stingley Jr., Christian Fulton, and Grant Delpit have emerged as NFL starters, combining for 58 starts. First, Stingley was an all-SEC DB for LSU's title-winning team as a freshman, which catapulted him to be tied for the highest drafted cornerback in NFL history, alongside Sean Springs and Jeff Okudah, when he was selected number 3 overall by the Houston Texans in 2022, where, as a rookie last season, he started 9 games, had 43 tackles, and looks to keep improving this next year. Kind of like how cornerback Christian Fulton is also improving on the Tennessee Titans, after he was drafted in the second round of the 2020 draft after being named an all-SEC DB for LSU. So far, Fulton has logged 26 starts, 4 interceptions, and 104 tackles. Finally, Grant Delpit, who you might recognize as the best DB in the country while he was at LSU, now plays football in Cleveland, Ohio. But luckily for him, his talent has helped him succeed so far, and he's logged 171 tackles over 23 starts. A very solid group for DBU, but if you thought LSU's DBs were cold, then you'd be shocked to know what Bama's DB room has done since entering the league. Of the 4 guys drafted from Alabama, 3 have emerged as starters, and they're all really solid. Safety Xavier McKinney made huge plays versus LSU in 2019, sacking Joe Burrow twice and totaling 13 tackles. Characteristic of his all-SEC performance in 2019, which led him to be drafted in the second round by the New York Giants, where he's become a very reliable safety, except for a few weeks in 2022 where he was injured after breaking his hand in an ATV accident during the team's bye week. But he has since come back and will be a key player for the Giants in 2023. Next for Alabama, we have 2 studs who are also related to other stars in the NFL. First, Patrick Surtain Jr., the son of the former All-Pro DB Patrick Surtain Sr., who was a 3-time Pro Bowler and started 131 games for the Dolphins and the Chiefs between 1998 and 2008. Pat Jr. was a lockdown corner at Alabama, holding opposing receivers to almost half the yardage per snap versus the nation's average. In the NFL, he's continued to make receivers disappear after being drafted 9th overall by the Broncos in 2021, locking down some of the league's best receivers and earning All-Pro honors in 2022, which is an award also achieved by Trayvon Diggs, who became an All-Pro in 2021 for the Dallas Cowboys after logging 11 interceptions over the season, which is the most for a single season of any active player in the league and the most since 2000. Trayvon is the brother of the Buffalo Bills star receiver Stephon Diggs, and like Surtain, was also a lockdown corner at Alabama, where he held quarterbacks to a passer rating of 44.5 when targeted in 2019. Of all the DBs combined in the 2019 game from both Alabama and LSU, the Alabama DBs have accounted for 61% of the games started, 57% of the tackles, and all 3 of the Pro Bowl selections. LSU might have 2 more guys getting reps in the league, but Alabama arguably has the better DBs. The defense was surely stacked, but once you hear about all these names for the offense, you might just realize that these 2 teams combined might just be the most talented offense in the NFL. And starting with the offensive line, you need to know that both teams won the Joe Moore Award in college as the nation's top offensive line. LSU in 2019 and Alabama in 2020. LSU had 6 linemen drafted from the 2019 roster, and 3 have become solid NFL starters. Ed Ingram from the Vikings, Lloyd Cushenberry for the Broncos, and Damian Lewis for the Seahawks. Meanwhile, Sadiq Charles, Austin Deculus, and Chasen Hines are on the come up and also have a chance to push for starter minutes. The group as a whole has started in 110 total games, which is similar to Alabama, whose unit has started 105 total games in the NFL. Evan Neal, Alex Leatherwood, and Jedrick Wills were all first-round picks. But the only offensive lineman in this video to make it to the Pro Bowl is Eagles lineman Landon Dickerson, who also helped the Eagles reach the Super Bowl in 2022. Overall, the 2 groups are really close. And when we look at their Pro Football Focus grades for 2022, the 4 guys still starting in the NFL from each team are equal on average. So to get a better understanding of who has the better offense, we need to learn about who these linemen were blocking for in 2019. First, we have the running backs. 3 running backs from the 2019 game were drafted: Clyde Edwards-Helaire for LSU, and Brian Robinson and Najee Harris for Alabama. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, after being the electric lead back for LSU's national championship team in 2019, was drafted first of the 3 running backs in this video, at 32nd overall in the 2020 draft by the Kansas City Chiefs, where many believed his quickness and pass-catching abilities would thrive next to Patrick Mahomes. And in his rookie season, he put those on display, where he had 1,100 yards from scrimmage and 5 touchdowns. But after injuring his knee in week 5 of his second season, Clyde has begun to lose his share of the Chiefs' backfield, which now in 2023 belongs to Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon. Though, Clyde is still really talented, and in the right hands, his career could still be turned around. But who has really had their life turned around is Brian Robinson Jr. Whose whole life was changed outside of a Washington, D.C. restaurant, where 2 robbers held him at gunpoint, and when he didn't comply, they shot him in the foot. Yet, he still came back for his rookie season and had over 800 yards rushing, which gives him a great opportunity to take the Commanders' starting running back spot in 2023. Finally, Najee Harris, who is the only certified starter of the 3 running backs heading into the 2023 NFL season, was selected 24th overall by the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2021 after receiving the Doak Walker Award at Alabama as the nation's best running back. The Steelers took note of that and have given him prime Adrian Peterson levels of usage since he came into the league, averaging 350 touches per season and 1,100 rushing yards over 2 seasons. Najee hopes to become more efficient as a runner in 2023 as he's averaged 3.9 yards a carry so far. But his incredible pass-catching skills should continue to give him solid opportunities as Pittsburgh's offense should rebound in 2023. Overall, Alabama looks to have the better running back situation since they have more players in the league and have also totaled more stats. Next, we have wide receivers. And starting with Alabama, all 4 guys in this photo, including John Mechie, who was not in this photo, were all drafted. Henry Ruggs was the highest rated receiver recruit out of all the receivers in this video, and he was also the first receiver to be drafted out of the bunch, going 12th overall in the 2020 draft to the Oakland Raiders. But at the same time, Ruggs is the first player to be out of the league.
We have new surveillance footage you will only see on Channel 8, capturing the intense speed Henry Ruggs was driving just moments before that deadly crash.
At 3 in the morning on November 2nd, 2021, Ruggs took his Corvette for a drive after having a few drinks, and also decided to drive above 150 miles an hour. Ruggs eventually lost control of his car, slamming into a Toyota RAV4, killing the driver and her dog. And it is unlikely we'll ever see him suit up in the NFL ever again. Next, Jerry Jeudy was the number 5 receiver recruit in the class of 2017 and had an incredible career at Alabama. In his second year, Jeudy won the Biletnikoff Award as the nation's top receiver, and also followed that up with a stellar junior season. Jeudy was selected 15th in the 2020 draft, and after 3 decent seasons in the league, totaling 2,300 yards and 9 touchdowns, he looks poised to break out in 2023 after building more chemistry with Russell Wilson. But in order to do that, he needs to overcome a nagging hamstring injury that he suffered this offseason. Then we have Jalen Waddle, who was a 5-star recruit out of Houston, Texas, and despite not eclipsing his freshman yardage peak about 800 yards at Alabama, was still selected 6th overall, which just shows how talented he is, which is pretty convenient given that he has the chance to learn from Tyreek Hill and also catch passes from his college QB. So far, he has totaled 2,300 yards over 2 seasons and even led the NFL with 18.1 yards per catch in 2023. Similar to another receiver who broke out in the league in 2022, Devontae Smith. Being from Louisiana, many believe that Smith might have gone to LSU, but he decided to roll with Nick Saban and sign with Alabama instead. Since then, Smith has become a football legend. He exploded in 2020 for 1,856 yards, 23 touchdowns, and became the first receiver to win the Heisman in the 21st century. But after being selected 10th overall to the Philadelphia Eagles in 2020 and have a sneakily good rookie season with 916 yards, he still seems to be pretty slept on. until he took the next step in 2022 with almost 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. Now, Smith looks to be one of the premier receivers in the NFL, which is something you could also say about LSU's receivers. Having 5 guys in total drafted, 2 have broken out, and many believe these are going to be the best 2 receivers in the NFL for the coming decade. First, we have Jamar Chase, who was initially committed to the University of Kansas because he was rather unknown as a prospect. Jamar became one of the nation's top wide receiver recruits after his senior year of high school and chose LSU. Then, he had one of the greatest sophomore seasons in college football history, catching 84 balls for 1,780 yards and 20 touchdowns, and also winning the Blentnikoff Award as the nation's top receiver. But COVID threw a wrench in Chase's college career, and he sat out the 2020 season. Yet, he was so talented that he was picked 5th overall in the 2021 draft to the Cincinnati Bengals, reuniting with Joe Burrow. Chase has been dominant in the league, breaking the rookie receiving yard record and totaling 22 touchdowns over 2 seasons, which make many believe that Chase is the best receiver under the age of 25, if it wasn't for Justin Jefferson, arguably the most talented player in this video. He was also the most slept on high school recruit. Justin is the younger brother of 2 former LSU football studs, Jordan Jefferson, who brought LSU to the 2011 national championship, and Ricky Jefferson, who's also a star safety for LSU. As a recruit, Justin was ranked lower than every other receiver in this video and only had 4 offers because until his junior year of high school, he was only 5'7". But once he got a growth spurt and joined LSU, he became a legend, leading the nation in receptions, 2nd in touchdowns, and 3rd in yards. He also had one of the most insane games in college football history in the 2019 playoffs where he torched my Oklahoma Sooners for 4 touchdowns in the first half. But after having such great performances, Justin was selected after 4 other receivers in the 2020 draft, who I'm sure you might recognize. But since then, Justin has outplayed them all, even becoming the NFL's most productive receiver last season. Justin's elite route running ability, tremendous open field looseness, and great ball skills might land him in the Hall of Fame someday. Finally, we have QB. All 3 quarterbacks on Alabama's 2018 roster became Heisman finalists and NFL starters: Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and Mac Jones. Though, in 2019, Hurts transferred away to Oklahoma, leaving Tua and Mac to take the helm. Against LSU in 2019, Tua threw for more yards and touchdowns than Joe Burrow, despite only 1 less pass attempt. But after that incredible game, Tua's 2019 season was cut short after dislocating his hip versus Mississippi State. Yet, his college career was still so prolific that the Miami Dolphins selected him with the 5th overall pick in the 2020 draft, where he is now leading one of the most powerful offenses in the league. Over 3 seasons, he has totaled 8,015 yards and 52 touchdowns. But unfortunately, his injury bug has caught up to him again in the pros after suffering 2 nasty concussions in 2022. But if he comes back strong this year, he has a chance to put up video game numbers throwing to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Next, we have Mac Jones, who took over for Alabama in 2019 after Tua's injury, and then proceeded to close out the season with one of the nation's best quarterback ratings of 187, which he then blew out of the water in 2020 with a rating of 203, throwing for 4,500 yards and 41 touchdowns, ending in a national championship victory over Ohio State. Then, Mac became the heir to Tom Brady in New England after being selected 15th overall by the Patriots in 2021. His rookie campaign was fantastic, but unfortunately he regressed in 2022 and was benched mid-season for Bailey Zappi. Though, after the Patriots cut Zappi and Malik Willis very recently, he now has a better chance in 2023. Though, for some of us football fans, a respectable quarterback may not be enough to keep you satisfied. And if that's you, look no further than LSU's Joe Burrow. You would think that Joe Burrow would have been lighting it up every year in college, but he actually backed up Ohio State QBs JT Barrett and Dwayne Haskins for his first 3 years in college. And apparently he had a lot of credit hours, so he grad transferred to LSU, where he could finally start in 2018. And during that year, he put up enough passing yards to be 2nd all-time for a season for an LSU quarterback. Yet, that was only his floor, because in 2019, Joe Burrow put up potentially the greatest Heisman winning season of all time, setting the league's single season record for touchdowns with 65, paired with 5,671 yards, 15 straight wins, and a national championship, which made him the most coveted Heisman QB since Cam Newton, which is a great standard to be compared to, but Joe still has a long career ahead of him and has the potential to be one of the greatest players of this generation, after he's already put up huge numbers comparable to all-time greats. Now that we've covered all the position groups, let's step back a bit and see who has done better overall. So far, Alabama, despite having 4 less players still in the league than LSU, has started 1 more game in total than LSU, meaning we'll have a pretty good comparison here. Alabama has more players at each offensive skill position group than LSU, which has helped them total 3,300 more yards, with most of those gains coming at quarterback and running back. Though, LSU has scored 24 more points on offense, and even more if you include kickers. Next, on defense, LSU has 4 more players who were drafted into the league, which has helped them get 124 more tackles and 3 more sacks. But Alabama has won the turnover battle with 16 more than LSU. Based off all the things we just covered, I think LSU has done better than Alabama in the last 3 seasons, mostly because they still have more guys in the league, they've totaled more offensive points, and they've also had more tackles and starts on defense. Though when we think long term, it could be a toss-up between these 2 teams. LSU's top-end talent on offense is incredible, but 5 years from now, it's possible that Alabama's depth across multiple position groups might just help them be the better team. Though, this is entirely up for debate, so if you believe one team is obviously better than the other, let us know in the comment section below. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If so, please like, subscribe, and turn on that notification button. And as always, stay wild, y'all.